We heard this morning from two candidates for governor. And I hope you were encouraged, as I was, to hear both the Democratic contenders come out strongly in favor of our reforms. We are also thrilled that this afternoon we have candidates for Congress speaking to us in both districts. And to start this off, I'm glad to turn it over to my colleague Richard, who will introduce a candidate for Congress in the 1st District.
I met Shawn O'Connor last summer when I attended a local Democratic Party meeting in the town of Bedford, where I live. And I came away and I was really impressed. He has great academic credentials as being both a Harvard, having a Harvard Law and MBA degrees, and had been a major in international studies at George Washington University for his undergraduate work, and then spent 4 years working for a congressman in Pennsylvania. And so being impressed, and I called him up and asked if I could volunteer. And he said, come to breakfast. And we talked and ended up working for him for a few months last summer. So, and because I was really impressed by the quality of thought that he was bringing to the position, or would bring to the position, and I just felt, you know, he's the sort of person I would like to represent me. And I'm sure you'll end up feeling the same way after you listen to him. So, Shawn, come forward. Stand at the podium if you want. Yeah.
Huh? Lift it up? Oh, okay. All right. Great. Well, yeah, exactly. This is a team effort. Great. Well, it's so wonderful to be here, and thank you, Dan, who I know from my time. I'm a board member at City Year, and he was our director of development, and Richard, who I've known for quite some time as well. So it's really great to be here, and I want to talk a little bit about the subject of the day, about campaign finance reform. But I also want us to remember that campaign finance reform is really the root cause of so many of the problems that we face today, right? So campaign finance reform prevents people from running, and it, you know, enables certain people to be in a better position to run, but it's also the reason that we can't get prescription drugs, you know, to a reasonable price, and get those very uncomfortable advertisements off of television. It's also the reason why we have struggled to raise the minimum wage, which is now a poverty wage because of the lobbyists for the business community that have prevented us from raising the minimum wage. It's the reason that, you know, scare tactics are able to be used to scare people about Social Security and Medicare, and not recognize that they are the, you know, strongest government programs in the history of the civilized world. So the way that I see campaign finance reform, and I'm just going to sort of share my thoughts, and then I want to take your questions, is that we have a 4-step process. So this, you know, we've obviously gotten to rock bottom now. You know, they say with addiction you have to hit rock bottom before you can begin recovery. Well, I think we're there. And so, you know, the first step is transparency. So with Citizens United, we have lost transparency. So now we don't even know who's spending unlimited sums of money to influence our elections. And part of the reason that I endorse Bernie Sanders for president, and I am proud to be the only, thank you. You know, there's quite a machine here in New Hampshire, and I am proud to have been the only federal or statewide candidate or elected official to have endorsed Bernie Sanders for president. And part of the reason that I did that is there's really only one reasonable way that we reverse Citizens United, which is the first step, right? and that is to appoint Supreme Court justices who are committed to overturning Citizens United, because the only other option would be to get a constitutional amendment, which would require 34 states to ratify it, and unfortunately the Koch brothers control more than 16 states in this country. So we're not going to get 34 state legislatures to ratify a constitutional amendment. Perhaps we could call a constitutional convention. We haven't done that in our 225 plus year history, so I'm not so confident in the constitutional convention model. But what I do know is probably 3 Supreme Court justices are going to either retire or pass away during the next presidency, and we need someone who makes it a litmus test. And I don't like litmus tests. As a lawyer, I think there should be judicial independence. But Citizens United was such a tilted decision. It was not based on any sort of constitutional fact. No legitimate constitutional scholars thinks that corporations have the unlimited right of free speech. And so overturning Citizens United is step one. But to do that, we need to elect a president, and I think New Hampshire will do its part on Tuesday. And, I encourage all of you to get out there. We may have some inclement weather, but, we can't lose this one. We really need to get out there no matter what the weather is. If you need to ski to the polls or snowshoe, whatever it is, let's get to the polls so we get a president who will overturn Citizens United. But that only gets us back to transparency. So we still have unlimited government. So then step number 2 is we've got to stop unlimited money in politics, okay? And so that means eliminating super PACs, right? Where people can give unlimited amounts of money, so Jeb Bush, who can't resonate with a rock, has more ads on television than anyone else because he has a super PAC that his daddy and his brother put together that raised $100 million on his behalf. And he will be able to continue on in this process even though he has no traction whatsoever with average everyday people because of these super PACs. So yes, that money is disclosed, but when you can give unlimited amounts of money, what you do is you do a beauty pageant with these super wealthy donors. And we're not talking millionaires, we're talking billionaires, right, who are putting up $50, $100 million to support a candidate. That's not American democracy. That's not one person, one vote, okay? That's many dollars, and they own our government. And then once we get rid of unlimited contributions, okay, so now we have transparency and we have unlimited contributions, we also have to think about PACs, and lots of people like to say, well, I only take money from this kind of PAC or I only take money from that kind of PAC. At the end of the day, I don't see why you need to take money from PACs. You should just take money from people. Right? Yeah. So the fact of the matter is, I have a primary here in New Hampshire, and I know you'll hear from my opponent later today. And she claims she doesn't take PACs from money from this kind of PAC, but she does take it from that kind of PAC. Well, let's just let the record reflect. I have had $1,500 in PAC donations, and it was from a law firm that represented me in a case that they won, thankfully for me, and they wanted to chip in, and that was the easiest way for them to chip in. She's taken about $40,000 in PAC money. Now, she would defend, well, I can take it because it's this kind of PAC or that kind of PAC. At the end of the day, if you do well with union members will just give you money. Union members give me money all the time. I don't need their PAC to give me money. They can just give me money themselves, right? So, once you open the door to one kind of PAC, you're going to open the door to all kinds of PACs. That's the problem, right? You can't say, oh, well, we're going to have union PACs and we're going to have, reproductive choice PACs, but we don't want to have business PACs, or we don't want to have, the U.S. Chamber have a PAC. Well, you can't do that, right? I mean, no constitutional scholar is going to let you do that. So we eventually need to get rid of PACs altogether and have it be citizens who fund elections. So then, the last step that I'd like to see us take, and yes, we are now in Back to the Future 10 or 20 years down the road here, is at the end of the day, what one vote, one person really means in this country is it means that we would all get a voucher, and you can choose the amount, $500, $1,000, $5,000, I don't care. We would all get a voucher, and we could decide how to divvy that money up. And you could give all that money to Bernie if that's what you're really passionate about. Or you could give some of that money to Bernie and some of that money to me, and that would be helpful. Or you could give some of that money to your state rep and some of that money to your state senator and some of that money to me and some of that money to Bernie or Hillary, whatever you want to do, okay? But then it would truly be about a debate of ideas. Because let me take you into the life of a congressional candidate, okay? And we've done a good job. We have 5 times more cash on hand than any other congressional candidate of either party right now, especially now that Frank Ginz has paid back his parents $355,000 with the people's money. But I spend 8 hours, 10 hours a day calling people in states I've never been to, telling them about this is a competitive congressional district and why I would be the best congressman. And that's just not right. I should be spending that time with New Hampshire voters, right? But to be competitive in politics in New Hampshire and anywhere in this country, but anywhere where you have an expensive media market, you have to spend this call time that you're supposed to do in a room with no windows. I refuse to sit in a room with no windows, so I do get a window. But, you know, and they're supposed to have your favorite beverage there to pep you up or something at hour number 7 every day. And you sit there all day saying the same spiel over and over, begging for money. And this is completely inappropriate, right? This is not what our founders envisioned. This is not what democracy is. This is when elections are bought, not won. Okay? If you had a public financing scheme, then elections would be won because, you know, you would still have to get funding, but you would have to get funding by convincing people in your district that your ideas are the best. And you would have debates, and as a result of those debates, people would give you a certain amount of money, and people would give your opponent a certain amount of money, and it would truly be about a debate of ideas. We could shut down the whole lobbying machine in Washington, you know, this revolving door where, you know, one day you're a member of Congress and 366 days later you're on the congressional floor and in the caucus rooms and you are now representing Merck. Okay, that's absolutely wrong. I would close the revolving door. Let's just seal up that revolving door permanently. You know, if you choose to serve in Congress, you should not be going there to enrich yourself. You should be going there because you want to serve. Okay? And that's why I've said, you know, another reason that I endorse Bernie is I believe that only a $15 minimum wage is a beginning of a living wage. Okay, in New Hampshire, it really should be $17, but only $15 is the beginning of a minimum wage. So I've made the pledge. I'm going to Washington to serve you, not to serve myself. Okay? And I will only accept the minimum wage salary of $7.25 an hour, and no, I will not be charging you overtime. So that's $15,080 a year. And every year, the remaining $159,000 will be given back to the people of New Hampshire in the form of grants to New Hampshire charities that will be chosen by a citizens commission. I'm not going to choose the winners. Okay, a citizen commission. I'm not going to choose between City Year and NHPR. You guys decide. It's your money. It's not my money. Okay, until we get a $15 minimum wage, because I'm there to get things done and I'm there to serve you, right? I'm not there to enrich myself. And another thing is, you know, we have all these government furloughs and budget shutdowns. You know, Congress keeps getting paid when the government goes on furlough. That is disgusting to me. It is disgusting to me that these folks who make $174,000 a year, and then when they get done start making $1 million a year because of the revolving door, they pay themselves when the $30,000 or $40,000 postal worker is furloughed, doesn't get paid, doesn't get benefits, and is locked out of their job because of the ineptitude of Congress. So what I'll tell you is if we have another government shutdown, even if they say I can take my $15,080, I won't take it. I'm not going to take your money when we are so dysfunctional that we can't get a budget passed, okay? In my mind, no budget, no pay, okay? If you don't do your job, you don't get paid. Why should I get paid if I don't do my job? okay? So that's a little bit about me and a little bit about my position on campaign finance reform. But, you know, I would really say, you know, and I really congratulate Dan and Richard and the rest of the team from NH Rebellion for all the great work that they've been doing. But we got to remember, this is not just about people buying our elections. It's about what they do when they buy our elections, right? And when they support Wall Street over Main Street, and when they support pharma companies over everyday citizens who are breaking pills in half because they can't afford their entire cost of prescriptions. So I'll open it up to questions. You can ask me anything. Every question is on the table. I'll repeat the question if we can't hear you. We have microphones in the audience, so please, what questions do you have?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Being that all the money anyways is backed by us American electors, is that going to be something that you're going to be putting into your campaign? Is what it's actually going to cost us for that money to be created that they're using? I was going to ask this question of the representatives earlier, but since all of this money that is circulating, as the Stamp Out campaign is pointing out, it's not for being used for elections and such. But every single American citizen is the one backing the formation of that money. So an accounting such as what you're saying is good, but is that going to be expanded into, like they were explaining, about holding the PACs and those accountable? Because those are the ones that are using our credit. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we all pay a tax for these, you know, so-called campaign spending and lobbying spending, right? Because when you go to buy anything, anywhere, a portion of what you're buying, and if it's prescription drugs, it's a huge portion of what you're buying, is going to fund lobbyists to keep the system the way it is. And so I would bar lobbying, right? And I would return that money to the people. But first, you know, Congress is so perverted right now that we can't even negotiate. Medicare, the largest purchaser of prescription drugs in America, because of the power of the pharmaceutical lobby that we all pay for when we buy our prescriptions, right? So we are paying to penalize ourselves, right? They have convinced Congress to prohibit the negotiation of Medicare drug prices. Now, Medicaid, they get to negotiate drug prices. The VA, they get to negotiate drug prices. So let me ask you a question, right? If you go into Walmart and you buy one box, or Target, I hope you go to Target and not Walmart because of some of the issues with the way they treat their employees, but wherever you go to shop, if you buy one box of cereal, do you expect to pay the same price than if you go to like a Costco and buy an 8-pack of that cereal? No, of course not, right? You expect to get a better deal if you buy the 8-pack of cereal because you're buying a lot more cereal. Well, Medicare buys like 100 million prescriptions for cholesterol medicines every month. Why should they get the same price as if you were buying one prescription of Medicare, right? It's a terrible, terrible problem, especially for senior citizens who are on a fixed income. And it's a problem that, as the gentleman points out, we are funding ourselves because every time we fill that prescription, we are then giving more money to the lobbyists, which is why we need to stop the lobbying and stop the super PACs and the PACs that are, that are funding this, because then they would have to take that money out. And then once we regulate what they're allowed to charge us for these drugs, because you go to Canada, you get the exact same drug produced in the exact same plant for 1/10 the price because they don't have the lobbying and they don't have the television ads, and pharma will tell you, oh, well, we have to spend all this money on research and development. Something I learned from some probing of some CEOs in the pharma industry is they spend 20 times more on those uncomfortable commercials that had convinced me for 2 years that I had restless leg syndrome, which I don't have. But I was like, Mom, can you it was like Christmas time, she was visiting, could you come in and look, do I have restless leg syndrome, right? I watch these ads, maybe I should be on this medicine. They spend 20 times more on advertising than they do on research and development. And we are the only country in any part of the world that allows prescription drugs to be advertised on television. So you strip that away, they can still spend all the money they need to on R&D, and it's not going to impact them at all.
Good afternoon. My name is Peter White. I'm with the New Hampshire Independent Voters, and we're asking We're asking every candidate for state and federal office if you will sign the pledge to refuse to accept PAC money or the support of super PACs and walk the walk for campaign finance reform. I have the pledge right here.
Yeah. So I will sign to not have a super PAC. You know, obviously I don't control what super PACs do. In terms of PACs, I mean, I have accepted this very small donation from one PAC, so I...
Not think anymore?
You know, I think that I don't... Because, you know, people that I've done business with may have a PAC within their company that gives me $1,000, you know, I certainly put a cap on the amount that I would accept from PACs.
Any PAC is a bribe. You have
Yeah.
to refuse to take any more PAC money. They have to support the New Hampshire Independent Voters and people that are trying to get money out of elections.
Yeah.
Walk the walk.
Yeah.
Will you refuse any more PAC money?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely do not want a super PAC. I will decry anybody who does a super PAC for me. In terms of PACs, I'm not interested in taking PAC money, but you know, I'll happily sign it with an asterisk that, you know, regarding PACs, I would have to evaluate if it was, you know, because if it's from someone who had a personal connection with me before.
They can give you an individual contribution. They don't have to give you PAC money.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is a lot of employers require them to put money into the PAC.
You said about Carol Shea Porter earlier. She's taking PAC money. You're taking PAC money. You have the best Congress money can buy.
Right.
Well, you walk the walk and refuse PAC money.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it covers all PAC money, including, you know, labor money and everything,
Yes.
then, you know, I would be good to go.
All right.
We have time for one more question.
Let's give him a hand. He's the first one to walk the walk and sign the anti-PAC pledge. And you got my support and thousands of independent voters.
Thank you.
We have a clean elections candidate right here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
As a follow-up to that question, I
Yes.
wonder whether you have contributed any money to your own campaign, and if so, in what amount?
Yeah, so I have loaned, not contributed, loaned an amount of money to my campaign to make sure that we have liquidity throughout the process because donations go up and down. I have loaned $1 million to the campaign to make sure that we can produce the videos that we want and things like that, but it is a loan. As you can imagine, if I'm going to be living off of $15,080 for the next probably at least 6 years until we take back the house, I'm going to need that, you know, money to live off of. So it is a loan that we very much expect to pay back. But, you know, as you can imagine, especially at the beginning as a first-time candidate, the money wasn't flowing in. So it is a loan, and it's disclosed as such in my FEC report, and we will pay back that loan.
Thank you so much, Shawn.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
Join me in thanking Shawn O'Connor.
Absolutely.
Great to have you with us. Good luck on the campaign, and we got to get you your water bottle.
Great. Well, thank you.
Walk strong, and good luck.
Shawn, you have a website? Yes, ShawnForNH.com.
ShawnForNH.com. SHAWN
Yeah.
for NH.
We love micro contributions. They are the best way to raise money. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Shawn.